In the vast expanse of the galaxy where countless alien empires flourished and centuries-old alliances dictated the flow of power, a single ship emerged from the deepest reaches of space, its presence a silent storm that set the stars themselves trembling. No one knew where it came from or how it arrived. All they knew was that the ship was there, a dark, hulking silhouette against the void. At first it was nothing more than a speck on the farthest scanners of the Galactic Council, the monitoring stations picking up an anomalous signal that none of the systems could identify. An unknown vessel traveling at impossible speeds through uncharted space. For a moment, it seemed like another ghost in the cosmos, another forgotten relic from a long-dead civilization, or a rogue craft from some minor race. But as it drew closer, the unknown ship's size and capabilities became undeniable. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. No markings, no insignias, nothing to indicate its origin or purpose. Its hull was sleek and obsidian, as if forged from the very darkness of space itself. Its shape defied typical design logic, with sweeping curves and sharp edges, a seemingly impossible blend of brutalism and elegance. And most unsettling of all was the utter silence with which it moved. Not a single word broadcasted, no signal sent, no attempt at communication, just a deep, unsettling quiet that spread like a virus across the galaxy. The Council was thrown into chaos as the ship's trajectory became clear. It was heading straight into the heart of the galaxy, toward the core worlds where the most powerful empires resided, where politics and military might had ruled for eons. The Kresh Dominion, the Zevra Collective, the Valian Confederacy, all of them sat uneasily as the lone ship came closer and closer to their territories. The powerful empires that had once considered themselves untouchable now saw their dominions threatened by this unknown force. Military fleets were scrambled from every corner of the galaxy, elite warships with state-of-the-art weapons designed to deter any would-be invaders. The Valian Confederacy mobilized its famous dreadnoughts, and the Kresh Dominion deployed its most skilled battalions. The Alliance sent its interceptors and destroyers, all preparing for a conflict that none of them truly understood, yet the entire galaxy was on edge, waiting for the inevitable showdown. In the command rooms of every fleet across the galaxy, the air crackled with tension. Every screen watched intently as the unknown ship entered known space, its signature still unreadable, its intent unclear. But one thing was certain: it was not stopping. It did not hesitate or slow as it passed through the outermost defenses and pressed on toward the heart of galactic power. No messages were received, no demands for surrender, no threats of violence, and yet everyone felt the weight of its presence bearing down on them. It was as if the ship itself was making the statement without uttering a single word. The galaxy's most advanced sensors and technology had no answers, no reason why it had come or what it intended. As it moved forward, it left behind a sense of foreboding, a quiet anxiety that spread through every command station and council chamber. The galaxy's leaders understood that something had changed, something was different, and no one knew whether this would be the dawn of a new era or the beginning of their destruction. As the unknown ship continued its relentless course toward the galactic core, it became clear that it was not just an isolated anomaly, but a harbinger of something much larger. The entire galaxy held its breath, waiting for some sign of what was to come. Would it engage in combat, or would it simply pass through with no consequence? Yet the longer it remained silent, the more the sense of dread grew. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session, every empire's representative on edge as the unknown vessel approached each leader, whispering in the shadows. Rumors swirled about its origins. Some suggested it was a weapon from a forgotten era, capable of decimating entire worlds. Others speculated it was the first strike in a new war, a challenge issued by an unknown enemy that could dismantle their carefully constructed alliances. Reports continued to flood in about the vessel's behavior. It had passed through multiple outer defense zones without even acknowledging their presence. Not a single shot had been fired, not a single demand made. It was like a shadow slipping through their fingers, yet its path had been unmistakable. It was heading directly for the heart of the galaxy, into the very regions where the greatest military powers held sway. The Kresh Dominion was the first to act. Their warlords and generals convened swiftly, their fleet mobilized at once. Their pride and arrogance could not stand such an unprovoked intrusion into their space. Their forces were vast, their technology unmatched. But the question remained, would they even be able to detect this intruder, or was it simply beyond their reach? The answer came when the Erebus, the name that had now been assigned to the ship, engaged with their flagship. A fleet of Kresh warships surrounded the unknown vessel, positioning themselves in a tactical formation that should have been near impenetrable, their weapons powered up and shields raised. But the Erebus made no effort to flee, no attempt to communicate, simply continued its steady approach toward the Kresh flagship. The moment before the first shot was fired, no one could have expected what happened next. Without warning, a brilliant flash of energy erupted from the Erebus. An intense beam that lanced out faster than the eye could track it struck the Kresh flagship, directly cutting through its shields and hull. In an instant, the massive warship split in two as if made of paper. Not even the mighty Kresh could withstand such precision and firepower. The entire fleet watched in stunned silence as their greatest weapon was reduced to debris in seconds. The Erebus did not stop to savor the victory. It did not revel in the destruction it had caused. It simply continued onward, moving like a predator, unbothered by the corpse of its prey. The remaining Kresh ships hesitated for just a moment, but that was enough to seal their fate. With a swift motion, the Erebus unleashed another devastating strike, this time hitting multiple ships at once. Its fire was unrelenting, its accuracy impeccable. The Kresh fleet was decimated in mere minutes. Reports quickly spread across the galaxy of the destruction the Erebus had wrought, and it became clear that the ship was not just a vessel of war, but something far more sinister, a silent force that could strike without warning and disappear into the void without a trace. It moved with purpose and precision, and it left behind a trail of destruction that no one could ignore. The galactic powers were no longer just concerned. They were terrified. The Erebus had shown that a single ship could turn the tide of a conflict in an instant, and with no clear explanation of its origins or its intentions, they realized they were no longer in control of their own destiny. Something had come from the darkness, and they had no idea how to stop it. After the devastation caused by the Erebus, panic spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The galactic powers, once secure in their dominance, now found themselves in a precarious position. The Kresh Dominion's defeat at the hands of a single ship was a blow to their pride, but it also signaled a new era, one where their traditional might could no longer guarantee victory. The galaxy's most powerful fleets, usually united in their ability to crush any threat, now faced an enemy unlike anything they had encountered before. A single, silent force capable of tearing their military superiority apart with ruthless efficiency. The Galactic Council was in turmoil. Every species had sent representatives to discuss how to confront the Erebus, but no solution could be found. Some urged an immediate, all-out assault. Others, like the Azir, recommended diplomacy, though the possibility of peaceful engagement seemed remote. Yet there was one faction that refused to cower. The Zevra Collective. Their fleets, known for their advanced weaponry and unparalleled firepower, declared that they would be the ones to deal with the Erebus. Their flagship, the Zenthros, a massive warship armed with plasma cannons and disruptor fields, was sent to intercept the human vessel. The Zevra had long been known for their aggressive tactics, and their fleet commanders were eager to prove that no lone ship, no matter how advanced, could stand against them. They gathered a formidable armada, the best ships in their arsenal, and set course for the Erebus, ready to crush it before it could cause more damage. As the Zevra fleet moved toward the Erebus, the atmosphere in the command centers was tense. The fleet's commanders were confident. No ship had ever survived an assault from the Zevra armada. But as the fleet approached the designated coordinates, something unsettling occurred. The Erebus did not attempt to flee. It didn't turn to face the incoming ships head-on either. Instead, it simply waited. When the Zevra armada entered firing range, their fleet opened fire in unison. Beams of plasma, energy projectiles, and missiles filled the void, converging on the Erebus in a blinding barrage. The Galaxy watched in anticipation, sure that the lone ship could not withstand such overwhelming firepower. But in a single fluid motion, the Erebus activated its advanced energy shields, and every single shot from the Zevra fleet dissipated into the aether with a hum, leaving the ship unscathed. The Erebus responded with a swift, calculated strike. It fired a single, concentrated beam of energy, not at the whole fleet but at the core of the Zenthros. The beam tore through the flagship's defensive systems like they were made of paper, cutting through the ship's core in an instant. The ship shuddered, its massive form breaking apart, the battle lost before it could truly begin. But the Erebus was not finished. As the Zevra ships regrouped and attempted to retaliate, the Erebus did not wait for them to fire again. Using its unmatched agility, it moved through the Zevra fleet like a phantom. Its strikes were surgical, precise, each weapon designed to incapacitate or disable rather than destroy. The Zevra Armada, though powerful, found themselves scrambling to adjust to the unpredictable tactics of their foe. Their advanced technologies and superior numbers could not overcome the Erebus's unpredictability. Within minutes, half of the Zevra fleet had been disabled, their ships floating helplessly in space, their crews overwhelmed by the ship's unrelenting assault. The survivors, disoriented and unwilling to engage further, retreated in full. The Erebus had not lost a single ship in return. Once again, the Galaxy was left in stunned silence. A single human vessel, equipped with seemingly nothing more than unexplainable technology and ruthless precision, had shattered the confidence of the Zevra collective. The message was clear. The Erebus was not to be underestimated, and no amount of force, no matter how well prepared, could guarantee victory. The Erebus's captain, a human named Rayleigh, had shown no desire to conquer. He did not demand anything from the retreating fleet. He did not even issue a warning. Instead, his actions spoke louder than words could ever convey. Humanity, once considered weak by the Galaxy's dominant powers, had proven that it could not only survive but thrive in the face of overwhelming odds. As the Erebus disappeared into the stars once more, the Galaxy found itself at a crossroads. It was no longer a matter of whether humanity was a threat. The question now was how the Galaxy would respond to the undeniable proof that humans could stand toe-to-toe with any empire, and perhaps even redefine the balance of power forever. The Erebus's latest victory sent shockwaves through the Galaxy, but it was not just the annihilation of the Zevra fleet that rattled the Galaxy's ruling powers. It was the revelation that humanity had developed an entirely new kind of warfare, one that none of them could understand or replicate. As each alien empire reeled from the overwhelming efficiency of the Erebus, questions began to circulate. What exactly was the secret of this human ship? What made it so unstoppable? And more pressing than anything else, what was the true nature of its weaponry? Whispers turned to frantic inquiries. Many assumed that the Erebus was armed with an unimaginable weapon, perhaps a hyperlaser, a planet killer, or some ancient technology stolen from another race. The sheer devastation that the ship had caused, combined with the lack of any visible weaponry during its attacks, led the Galaxy's leaders to believe that humanity had unlocked a form of destruction that defied all logic. But Captain Rayleigh's silence about the ship's capabilities only added fuel to the fire. While the Erebus had decimated two powerful fleets with precise, seemingly surgical strikes, it had never unleashed a single weapon that could be seen as ultimate. There was no cataclysmic blast that vaporized planets, no wave of destruction that obliterated entire star systems. It was all too controlled, too calculated. Every strike was measured to disable, not destroy. Every weapon aimed at the heart of enemy power rather than their massed forces. Despite the growing fear, Rayleigh did not issue any demands. He didn't flaunt the power at his disposal or send ominous warnings. Instead, he allowed the Galaxy's powers to stew in their uncertainty, and that more than anything was what unnerved them. In the council chambers, heated debates erupted. Some argued that the Erebus was holding back something far worse, a weapon of unspeakable power waiting for the perfect moment to be unleashed. The Kresh Dominion, still humiliated from their earlier defeat, pushed for an immediate strike, insisting that the Erebus be destroyed before it could reveal its true potential. Meanwhile, the Valian Confederacy and the Azir pushed for restraint, fearing that such a direct attack might provoke the unknown human ship to act in ways even more unpredictable. And then came the moment of revelation, unexpected and far more disorienting than anyone had imagined. Rather than relying on a doomsday weapon, Rayleigh made his first public transmission to the galaxy since the Erebus's arrival. His voice was calm, measured, and entirely devoid of arrogance. "You are all searching for a weapon you believe will destroy you," he said, his words echoing across all communication channels. "But the weapon you fear is not one you can destroy or counter with force. The weapon is us, humans." For a moment, there was only silence. Every empire, every race, paused as they tried to make sense of what Rayleigh had said. The broadcast continued, revealing the shocking truth. The Erebus's so-called weapons were nothing more than tools of precision, designed for tactical control rather than brute annihilation. The ship's true power, Rayleigh explained, came from its ability to adapt, to outthink its enemies, and to never give up in the face of overwhelming odds. "I don't need to use a planet killer to win," Rayleigh continued. "I only need to make you doubt your ability to stop us. Humanity has never relied on overwhelming force. We've always relied on strategy, ingenuity, and the determination to survive. That is the true weapon of the Erebus." The revelation shocked the galaxy. For all their technological superiority, the alien empires had never considered that the greatest weapon could be something intangible, something as simple as human will. There was no ultimate weapon, no catastrophic destruction waiting to tear through their fleets. There was only a ship, an ordinary, if extraordinarily advanced, ship, manned by a crew that refused to back down. That was what the galaxy had been fighting. Not a physical weapon, but an unyielding spirit, a relentless drive to overcome impossible odds. The implications of Rayleigh's broadcast were profound. The galaxy had always measured power by the size of fleets and the might of weapons. But what if, for the first time, it had to face an enemy that didn't fight like them, that didn't think like them? An enemy whose greatest strength was its willingness to endure, to adapt, and to do whatever it took to win. The Erebus wasn't just a ship. It was a declaration that humanity was not to be underestimated, not because of its firepower, but because of its ability to stand up against the greatest of threats and turn the tide when all seemed lost. The Erebus wasn't a weapon of mass destruction. It was a weapon of survival. And that, it seemed, was something the galaxy could neither predict nor counter. In the wake of Captain Rayleigh's startling revelation, the galaxy's political landscape shifted. The alien empires, still reeling from the Erebus's displays of power, found themselves at an impasse. The fear that had gripped their hearts after the ship's initial strikes began to transform into something more dangerous: doubt. The Erebus had proved that humanity wasn't the fragile species they had once considered it to be. In fact, it had now become clear that humans were no longer merely survivors. They were becoming a force to be reckoned with. However, just as the debate raged on about whether to confront the humans with an all-out assault or to offer them peace, something unexpected occurred. The Azir, an ancient race known for their wisdom and neutrality, stepped forward with a proposal that stunned the entire galaxy. The Azir had long prided themselves on their ability to remain uninvolved in the conflicts of others, serving instead as observers and diplomats. But after witnessing the events surrounding the Erebus, they believed it was time to take a more active role. The Azir, with their vast knowledge and philosophical perspective, saw something in humanity's actions that no one else did. Where the other empires saw a weapon or a threat, they saw a species willing to do whatever it took to survive, something the galaxy's most powerful empires had never fully understood. In their eyes, humanity's resolve, its ingenuity, and its ability to adapt were not signs of a threat, but of a new form of evolution. The Azir wanted to explore the possibility of a partnership, a new form of galactic unity that included humanity, a race still young by galactic standards, but one that had shown tremendous potential. The council was divided. Some representatives, like those from the Kresh Dominion and the Zevra Collective, dismissed the Azir's proposal outright, seeing it as a weakening of their own authority. To them, humanity was nothing more than an unpredictable wild card, and they were determined to keep it in check. Others, however, saw the opportunity for something more. The Valian Confederacy, ever keen on maintaining balance, found the Azir's perspective intriguing. Perhaps a new alliance with humanity could shift the power dynamics in their favor, allowing them to secure more influence while keeping their enemies in check. And so, against the backdrop of political tension and uncertainty, a delegation was formed, a coalition of several species, including the Azir, the Valian Confederacy, and the neutral Celestians, to initiate peace talks with humanity. The leader of the delegation, an Azir diplomat named Hajar, sent a communication to Captain Rayleigh, inviting him and the crew of the Erebus to meet on neutral ground. It was a bold move, one that no one in the galaxy had expected. The Azir, after all, had never involved themselves in the politics of others, but the Erebus had forced their hand. They understood that humanity's potential could no longer be ignored, and the best course of action was to find out what they truly wanted from the galaxy. Rayleigh's response came swiftly, and it was equally unexpected. He agreed to the meeting, but with one condition: that no fleet would accompany the delegation. The humans would come alone, with no weapons raised, no demands made, simply to discuss terms. It was a show of faith, of trust, and most importantly, a demonstration of humanity's confidence in their own strength. There would be no intimidation, no threats, only the opportunity for open dialogue. When the day of the meeting arrived, the galaxy held its collective breath. The Erebus arrived at the designated coordinates, its silhouette dark against the starry backdrop, the ship still as imposing as ever. The Azir delegation, along with several other representatives, arrived in a neutral ship, their faces unreadable. As the two parties stood face to face, there was a palpable tension in the air. The Erebus had caused immense destruction, and the galaxy's leaders were unsure if this was just another moment of humanity's subtle provocation, or the beginning of something far more complex. The conversation began slowly, with the Azir asking questions about humanity's intentions, its goals, and its place in the galaxy. Captain Rayleigh, however, was not forthcoming with grandiose declarations of conquest or glory. Instead, he spoke of humanity's history, its struggles, and its drive to thrive. He explained that the Erebus wasn't a symbol of domination. It was a symbol of survival, of resilience in the face of unimaginable challenges. "The galaxy may see us as newcomers," Rayleigh said, "but we've been fighting for our place in the stars for centuries. We didn't come here to conquer. We came here to prove that we can stand alongside you, not beneath you." The Azir listened intently, absorbing his words, and as the conversation unfolded, the realization slowly dawned on the assembled delegates. Humanity was not the enemy they had once thought it to be. It was something else entirely, a species unlike any other, with its own path, its own future to carve in the stars. For the first time in history, they were no longer the weakest link in the galactic chain. They were a force that had earned their place at the table. As the meeting continued, it became clear that humanity was not demanding power or dominion. Instead, they were asking for something far simpler: respect. And that, more than anything, shifted the balance of the galaxy forever. The meeting between Captain Rayleigh and the Azir delegation marked the beginning of an unprecedented shift in the galaxy's political climate. What had started as a wariness toward humanity's unexpected arrival turned into a cautiously respectful dialogue. The Azir, long known for their wisdom and neutrality, saw something in humanity that the other galactic powers had overlooked: a tenacity and an intelligence that defied expectations. As the meeting progressed, Captain Rayleigh's words resonated with the galaxy's representatives in ways no one had anticipated. His calm, measured speech was devoid of grandstanding, yet his presence commanded attention. He spoke of humanity's struggles, its long history of survival and perseverance. He spoke of their desire not for conquest, but for cooperation. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as a threat, but as a potential ally, a valuable asset in the ever-shifting tides of galactic politics. However, not everyone was so quick to embrace this new understanding. The Kresh Dominion, already humiliated by their earlier defeat, refused to let go of their arrogance. They saw this diplomatic turn as a sign of weakness, believing that the Azir had made a grave mistake in attempting to engage with humanity. The Kresh warlords, whose pride had been shattered by the Erebus, were eager for revenge. They continued to fortify their fleets, hoping to find some way to avenge their losses and regain their honor. But the Erebus and its crew remained silent, making no threats, offering no challenges. Instead, they continued their journey through the galaxy, making their presence known but never escalating the tension. Rayleigh's message was clear. Humanity would no longer be a passive player in the galactic game of power. They would no longer be ignored, but neither would they resort to mindless aggression. Their goal was cooperation, not conflict. As the Kresh continued to fan the flames of war, the other empires began to take notice. The Valian Confederacy, long a rival of the Kresh Dominion, saw the opportunity to act. They recognized that an alliance with humanity could shift the balance of power in their favor, creating a counterbalance to the Kresh's growing belligerence. With the Azir's neutral stance and the growing influence of humanity's diplomatic efforts, the Valians sought to formalize a new galactic partnership. Behind the scenes, the Azir worked tirelessly to broker a deal that would unite the disparate factions. They understood that the galaxy was on the brink of a new era, one in which humanity could either be a formidable force for peace or an unstoppable engine of destruction. The Azir themselves had no desire for war, but they knew that maintaining neutrality in the face of this new power could have devastating consequences. They needed to find a way to keep humanity within the fold, but they also had to prevent the galaxy from falling into chaos. In the coming months, the Erebus became a symbol, not of war, but of diplomacy. Humanity's unyielding strength was no longer viewed solely through the lens of military power, but through its capacity to bring people to the table. As Rayleigh continued to meet with various factions, a new idea began to form in the minds of the galaxy's leaders. Perhaps humanity could be the bridge between the empires. With their fresh perspective and outsider status, humans could bring balance to the tensions that had long plagued the galaxy. The first step toward an official alliance came when Captain Rayleigh signed the Galactic Concord, a treaty designed to foster peace and cooperation between humanity and the major galactic powers. The Kresh Dominion, despite their protests, were forced to recognize the growing influence of humanity. Though they were still bitter over their losses, the Kresh had no choice but to acknowledge the reality that humanity was here to stay, and any attempts to undermine that reality would come at great cost. The signing of the Concord was a historic moment, witnessed by representatives from every major empire. It was clear that the galaxy had entered a new phase, one in which cooperation, rather than conflict, would shape the future. The Erebus had not only altered the balance of power, it had altered the way the galaxy thought about warfare, diplomacy, and survival itself. But even as the treaty was signed, not all was peaceful. The Zevra Collective, still smarting from their defeat, watched from the sidelines with a mix of suspicion and resentment. Though they had not openly opposed the treaty, their leaders remained wary. The Zevra were a proud species, and the loss of their fleet to a single human ship still stung. They knew that humanity's place in the galaxy had irrevocably changed, but they were not ready to fully accept it. The Erebus had exposed their vulnerabilities, and that was a wound that would not heal easily. Still, for the time being, the galaxy moved forward. The Concord was a fragile piece, and its future uncertain, but it was the first step toward a new reality. The Erebus and humanity's place in the galaxy were no longer questions of if, but how. How would humanity fit into this complex web of alliances, conflicts, and power struggles? How would they navigate a galaxy that had once seen them as insignificant and now regarded them as a force to be reckoned with? The future was unclear, but for the first time in a long while, humanity held the cards, and they were not going to play by anyone else's rules. As the galaxy adjusted to the new equilibrium, a fragile peace settled over the diplomatic corridors. The signing of the Galactic Concord marked a historic milestone, but the true test of this peace was still to come. The Kresh Dominion, though begrudgingly recognizing humanity's place in the galaxy, continued to harbor resentment. They had not been humbled by their defeat at the hands of the Erebus. They had been wounded, and a wounded animal is always more dangerous. The Dominion's leaders secretly began to strategize, contemplating the best ways to strike back at humanity, even while publicly maintaining a facade of cooperation. The Erebus, however, was not oblivious to the underlying tensions. Captain Rayleigh knew that while the diplomatic efforts were progressing, there were still many who viewed humanity's rise with distrust or outright disdain. The treaty might have been signed, but the true peace was yet to be forged. Trust had to be earned, not just given. Rayleigh's crew, too, understood that they were standing on the precipice of something bigger than any of them could fully comprehend. A galaxy that had once viewed them as insignificant now watched every move they made. The test of humanity's resolve came when the Kresh Dominion, in an unexpected move, accused a human convoy of violating the disputed border. The Kresh claimed that humanity's ships had crossed into their territory without authorization, a blatant attempt to undermine the Galactic Concord. Though the evidence was inconclusive, the Dominion used it as a pretext to rally support among their allies, threatening to break the treaty and wage war once again. The galaxy held its breath. If the Kresh decided to escalate, the fragile peace would be shattered, and war would erupt across the galaxy. The Valian Confederacy, who had sided with humanity in the treaty, was quick to voice their support for the humans. They argued that the Kresh's accusations were groundless, an attempt to provoke an incident. The Azir, who had worked so hard to bring about the treaty, were equally vocal in urging restraint. But the Kresh were relentless. They had already begun to mobilize their fleets, determined to make humanity pay for their perceived slight. Rayleigh knew this moment was coming. The Erebus had been silent for so long, and now, the galaxy's powers were testing whether humanity would back down in the face of aggression, or whether they would stand their ground. With the Kresh on the verge of launching a preemptive strike, Captain Rayleigh made a bold decision. He would confront the Kresh head-on, not with weapons, but with his words. He would not allow the conflict to escalate into another war. The Erebus's sleek form entered the Kresh system under the cover of a diplomatic envoy. Rayleigh broadcasted a message to the Kresh Dominion, requesting a direct meeting with their high command. He did not come with a fleet or armed soldiers, only his words and his ship. The message was simple. We did not cross your borders intentionally, but if you seek war, we will give you war. I offer peace, but I will not allow our people to be provoked without consequence. The Kresh High Command was stunned. To face a human ship so boldly, to have the audacity to challenge their accusations not with force, but with a message of direct confrontation, was unlike anything they had experienced. It was not a threat of annihilation, but a challenge to their pride. The Kresh leaders, usually quick to strike and assert dominance, were forced to reconsider their approach. Rayleigh's words, though calm, were brimming with the quiet power that had won humanity so many victories in the past. In the halls of the Kresh War Council, the debate was heated. Some generals were eager to lash out, to strike at humanity before the situation could escalate further. Others, however, were not so sure. They had already been humiliated once by the Erebus, and another failure would likely break their standing among the other empires. The Kresh had no choice but to consider the possibility that humanity's strength didn't lie in brute force, but in the resolve of a single human captain who would not back down. In the end, the Kresh made a decision that no one had anticipated. Rather than escalating into war, They agreed to a face-to-face meeting with Rayleigh. The terms were simple. Humanity would not be punished for the convoy's alleged violation, but they would agree to a joint investigation into the border dispute. No further action would be taken unless further evidence was discovered. For the first time, a major galactic power had backed down in the face of humanity's resolve. Rayleigh's gamble had paid off. It wasn't an overwhelming military victory. It wasn't even a victory in the traditional sense. But it was a triumph of will, of humanity's determination to stand firm in the face of opposition without resorting to violence. As the Erebus departed the crash system, its crew felt the weight of their actions. The battle for peace had been won not through firepower, but through unwavering conviction. The galaxy had learned something crucial. Humanity could survive anything, but it could also endure, adapt, and find ways to negotiate its place in the cosmos without needing to destroy every obstacle in its path. The Kresh Dominion's retreat was a turning point, and soon, the ripple effects of this diplomatic victory spread across the galaxy. The message was clear. Humanity was not just a force of war. It was a force of peace, and it would fight not for dominance, but for its place in the stars. The diplomatic victory over the Kresh Dominion had sent ripples through the galaxy, signaling that humanity had transcended its status as an underdog. With the Erebus at the helm, humanity had not only survived the initial shocks of galactic conflict, but had emerged as a new power in its own right. One that could not be ignored, but one that was not driven by the same ambitions as the older empires. It was a power that operated not on the scale of sheer destruction, but on the unwavering resolve to adapt, survive, and bring others into a future where cooperation could replace conflict. As the galaxy slowly adjusted to this new reality, the Erebus continued its journey, a silent sentinel in the dark stretches of space. Rayleigh and his crew had never sought glory or recognition. They had only wanted a future where humanity could exist without fear of annihilation, without the oppressive weight of being a pawn in the struggles of galactic titans. Their recent actions, standing firm against the Kresh, securing peace with the Azir and Valian Confederacy, had shown the galaxy that humanity could hold its ground, not by overwhelming force, but by the power of their convictions. And then, as the final piece of the diplomatic puzzle began to fall into place, a new voice emerged, one that would forever change the galaxy's perception of humanity. On the eve of a new summit, where the fate of the Erebus and its crew would be discussed alongside that of humanity's place in the galaxy, Captain Rayleigh made an unprecedented broadcast. He addressed the entire galaxy, the first time humanity had made such a bold statement to all the known powers. Galactic peace is a fragile thing. Rayleigh's voice rang across the stars. But it is not a thing we should fear. Humanity has learned many lessons in its history. Among the most important, we are not defined by what we destroy. We are defined by what we choose to build. The broadcast continued, each word heavy with purpose, every syllable reflecting the essence of humanity's survival story. Rayleigh spoke not of dominance, nor of expansion, but of collaboration. He acknowledged that peace was a complex, uncertain path. But the Erebus had proven that humanity could be the bridge between opposing forces, the voice that could rise above the clash of ancient civilizations. He called for a new era, one not defined by empires and their borders, but by a collective future where cooperation among species was no longer an ideal but a necessity. We do not seek control of the stars. We do not want to dominate or subjugate. What we seek is to stand alongside you all. We seek to build a future where our differences don't divide us, but where we recognize that the strength of each species lies in its ability to work together. Humanity will not stand alone. We will stand with you, if you choose to stand with us. The reaction across the galaxy was immediate. Some empires, still reeling from the shock of humanity's rise, were skeptical, unwilling to trust such an idealistic vision. The Kresh Dominion, although chastened, remained wary, their pride still stinging from the Erebus's intervention. But others, like the Azir and the Valian Confederacy, saw the broadcast as the next logical step. a natural progression from the treaty and the peace they had forged with humanity. For the first time, a new order began to take shape. Humanity's role in this new galactic framework was not as an isolated power, but as a catalyst for change, a force that could shape the direction of future negotiations and alliances. The Erebus, that once feared ship, was now seen as a symbol not just of war, but of the potential for peace. The day of the summit arrived, and representatives from all corners of the galaxy gathered to discuss the future. The Erebus sat quietly at the center of the proceedings, a reminder of everything that had led them here. The representatives were no longer just concerned with how to deal with humanity. They were beginning to understand that humanity's place in the galaxy was one of balance, a voice that could guide the galaxy into a new era. Rayleigh took the floor once more, addressing the assembled leaders. He spoke not as a conqueror, nor as a diplomat, but as a representative of humanity's true nature, a species defined by its ability to persevere, to evolve, and to reach out toward the stars in search of understanding, not domination. The stars are vast, and our place in them is small, but we are not insignificant. We are a species that has fought for its future, and now we seek to help others fight for theirs. This galaxy is not one of endless wars. It is one where hope, cooperation, and mutual respect can lead the way. And with that, the summit marked the beginning of something unprecedented. Humanity had become a key player not through the destruction of its enemies, but through the forging of alliances, the creation of a future where each species had a role to play. The Erebus had shown the galaxy that strength was not measured by firepower, but by the courage to face the unknown and the willingness to work together for the common good. The dawn of this new era was not one of war, but of peace, a peace that was hard-won, but one that held the promise of something greater than any of the galaxy's powers had ever dared to imagine. The future was uncertain, but humanity was no longer on the periphery. It was at the center, guiding the way forward into a galaxy where survival was not just about defeating your enemies. It was about finding a way to live together in the stars.